Our last venture into the world of festive movie favourites is now upon us, and just in time too for the big day itself. Right now, Rudolph is doing his final training to get him in the shape he needs to be in to break the sound barrier. The guillotine at the abattoir is lopping off the heads of turkeys like they're conquered dissenters after a grand Game of Thrones battle. And dads are planning that first trip to the all-night garage for their Christmas present shopping. One thing that I've noticed while doing these, though, is how similar the plot lines are. Polar Express is a tale of a boy aging out of the magic of Christmas. In The Grinch, a lonely creature's heart thaws due to the festive season, and Buddy the Elf is trying to get his biological dad off of the naughty list and to reconnect at Yuletide. Ultimately, this basic premise of Christmas being a magical time and people discovering or rediscovering their love for it, it all stems from the first true Christmas classic tale. No, not that boring one in the Bible, the first good one. That, of course, being Charles Dickens' 1843 literary masterpiece, A Christmas Carol. Now, this will be a tale that we're all familiar with, even if that was via the Muppets, Mickey Mouse, Bill Murray or Blackadder. Old Man Scrooge is, quite frankly, a right old git, and is visited by the eternally damned ghost of his old business partner Jacob Marley on Christmas Eve, who's there to warn him of the arrival of 3 spiritual heavies who are going to set him straight. With his soul utterly redeemed on Christmas Day after these visits, he becomes a joyous figure beloved by all, none of whom thinks he's having a nervous breakdown. Potentially, the reason they don't think he's having a nervous breakdown is because he's surrounded by Victorian street urchins who are more concerned about fighting for bread than the quirks of an old-age fun siphon. There have been literally hundreds of Christmas Carol adaptations and spoofs on the big and small screen over the years. But the one we're looking at today is Disney's CG animated version that was released in 2009. It's another one by Robert Zemeckis and his motion capture studio, which so successfully creeped us out in our Polar Express review. We actually have another connection to another recent episode, as the lead in The Grinch, Jim Carrey, has taken the role of the crotchety, penny-pinching misery Ebenezer Scrooge in this one. Carrey also provides motion capture and the voices for the 3 visiting manifestations. Also joining in the fun are Robin Wright, Gary Oldman, Colin Firth and Bob Hoskins. Disney's Christmas Carol, though, didn't do supremely well. It lost an estimated $50 to $100 million after marketing expenditure, and its disappointing 3D showing were taken into account. This ultimately resulted in Disney shuttering the studio who produced it and forced the president of the Motion Pictures Department to hand in his resignation. Response from the critics was decidedly lukewarm. Disney's own in-house video game department, Disney Interactive Studios, released the video game themselves exclusively for the Nintendo DS. Coding duties were handled by Sheffield Sumo Studio, who are staffed by many ex-Gremlin Graphics employees and worked on titles as esteemed as the Sonic Team Racing and Hitman series. We have a curious little point-and-click venture here that follows the story of Scrooge's redemption from his Bob Cratchit-abusing working day until he's passed out on nephew Fred's chaise lounge after spunking most of his savings on a day of well-meaning excess. You don't control Scrooge, but act as a sort of an unnamed, good-natured, mischievous spirit, forcing his terrified bony behind to embark on his soul-saving adventure. To get Bob a bit of coal to warm his cockles, you'll have to manipulate the environment of the office to get the coal into his hands, distracting the old grump to ensure that he doesn't see. Later on, you'll have to tickle Scrooge's feet to get him out of bed and into his chair, as he's desperate to avoid meeting the burly ghost of Christmas Present. Scattered throughout the proceedings are various mini-games that make full use of the touchscreen. You know what to expect here. The dreaded sliding picture puzzles, the card games, the musical fare involving violins and pianos, and you even get to make the Cratchit family Christmas dinner. All of these are mostly used in context, but nothing stands out as particularly original. There are a lot of them though, and they can be accessed from the main title menu along with an advent calendar style application. There are a lot of hidden objects throughout which may help with the replayability, and scenes already finished can be accessed from the main menu for a replay, should you wish to maximise Scrooge's redemption percentage. Redemption percentage, that's an interesting stat. I wonder if we all have them. Mine would be like 28%, I reckon. It is a game that does need a bit of artificial padding, as its overall playtime from start to end is fairly short, as in 6-year-old sleep time on Christmas Eve short. It can be polished off very easily in a single sitting, very much like a breakfast bottle of Bucks Fizz on Christmas Day. While it is bound to the storyline of the tale, our time with each spirit does seem to be fairly brief, with each scene having at least 2 or 3 in-game puzzles and a mini-game before the apparition will shuffle you off to the next spook. They clearly want to knock off before the big day, I expect. Presentation-wise, it's alright, I guess. No attempt is made to recreate the 3D soulless monstrosities from the Zemeckis movie. We instead get these hand-drawn representations of the characters that look, I don't know, unfinished, like they've traced. Seems a little scrappy to me. But Belle here looks like she's been to the Dickensian lip filler studio. The music is suitably eponymous, absolutely teeming with various A Christmas carols, do you see? In terms of Christmas feel, this certainly feels the most festive of the 4 games I've covered this month. There's no question about that. Gameplay-wise, it has the distinct whiff of a selection box, and not one of your favourite chocolates. No, it is a DS shovelware selection box packed with every familiar trope of the era. It's very standard, very familiar stuff, and while it does pack in a lot of variety, you'll have played every one of these DS minigames better elsewhere. The Christmas wrapping is doing a lot of legwork. I wouldn't say this has either filled me with Christmas cheer or made me bar humbug, but somewhere in between. It's a bit like that point in the afternoon of Christmas Day where you really fancy a nap to sleep off the dinner, but you're instead forced to play a board game you're not particularly bothered about. It's as bland as a Boxing Day leftover sandwich. The game received a 7.5 from the good folks of GameZone in December 2009. They said, I wasn't very impressed with this game at first, due to some boring initial mini-games and slow game pace, but soon the games became much more fun and the game pace picked up. The look of the game also sold me. A good choice for anyone who loves Christmas and or the book A Christmas Carol. We're going a bit upmarket for the next review, as we've got the Telegraph giving us their opinion. Ooh, fancy. They said, ironically, the content which offers the most reward is the story upon which the game and movie are based, and you don't need to pay full price for this video game to get hold of that. Players with low expectations may enjoy playing through this game a couple of times, but it will probably test the Christmas spirit and patience of anyone else. They gave it a 4 out of 10. So there we are then, a month of Christmas movie adaptations for Nintendo's handheld consoles, all done and dusted. The breast meat being the Grinch on the Game Boy, and the Parson's Nose unquestionably that piece of elf trash adaptation for the Game Boy Advance. So now I will leave you to it. Don't eat too much, and if you do, don't look at the fruit bowl, as it'll only make you feel guilty and fill you with self-hatred. You haven't touched one of those oranges, have you? Anyway, have a good one. Ho, ho, ho. And Kay, thanks, bye.